Ray White loses everything before he even learns what family really means. A brutal war tears through his home, leaving him the only one alive. Until a woman named Lydia finds him. She's no ordinary soldier, as she's the Iceblade Wizard, a legendary mage whose power over frost is feared on every battlefield. Lydia brings Ray back to the army's camp, where the soldiers tend to him and give him food and warmth for the first time in days. When he wakes up, he clings to her like the only person he has left in the world. Lydia sees something in him like a spark that refuses to die, so she makes a decision right then and there. If fate took everything from him, she'll give him something back. She'll teach him ice magic so one day he can become strongest Iceblade sorcerer of all time. Time passes and Lydia dies, but Ray keeps training with what she taught him and also learns from Howard, who's another soldier. His whole unit becomes like his real family, since he doesn't have one. Ray starts using ice magic in battles and destroys enemies with it. Everyone watching can't believe what they're seeing because controlling ice is one of the hardest types of magic that exists. Then everything falls apart during one fight. Both Lydia and Howard end up getting seriously injured. Ray does everything he can to help Howard, but it doesn't matter. Howard dies while Ray's watching him. At the same time, Lydia gets hurt so badly that her legs stop working forever. The whole thing is too much for Ray to handle. His magic just explodes out of him in this huge wave of ice that covers everything around him because he can't keep it together anymore. Fast forward a bunch of years and Ray's walking through the gates of Arnold Academy. This place is basically the top magic school anywhere in the kingdom. Only nobles and kids whose parents were famous wizards usually get to go there. Nobody like Ray has ever been allowed in before. He's the first ordinary kid to break that rule. Standing there looking at the massive buildings, Ray feels pretty amazed by the whole setup. Then he hears some voices calling out to him. He spins around and sees 5 guys standing in a group. The one doing all the talking is Albert. This guy immediately starts trashing Ray for not being born into the right kind of family. Ray doesn't let it get to him. He just calmly mentions that he's here because he wants to learn stuff. That answer makes Albert even more angry than before. Albert reaches out trying to grab Ray, but Ray slides out of the way without any trouble. Right when Albert's about to try again, this red-haired girl steps in between them. Everyone around them seems to know who she is, and Ray picks up on that real quick. Her name's Amelia Rose. She comes from one of the 3 most powerful noble families around, and she's also crazy talented at magic. Amelia looks at Albert and tells him straight up that if someone's good enough to pass the entrance exam, they belong here just as much as anyone else. Albert clearly hates hearing that, but he backs off anyway. Ray thanks her for stepping in, and they introduce themselves to each other properly. It's kind of weird seeing the richest girl in school becoming friends with the poorest kid, but that's what starts happening. Ray heads into his first class and meets Gray, who's going to be teaching him. She points to where he should sit. Then she starts explaining how magic actually works and what you can do with it. She breaks down the ranking system for wizards. There's bronze at the bottom, then silver, then gold, then platinum, and finally there's this top rank that only 7 people in history have managed to reach. Albert can't help himself and interrupts the whole class. He asks Gray why the school is letting in some random kid with no magic blood when this place is supposed to be all about excellence. Gray fires back at him pretty hard. She says judging wizards by their family background is wrong. The only thing that matters is how skilled they actually are. After that, Gray keeps going with her lesson. She explains that magic users can control 5 basic things, which are solids, liquids, gases, and plasma. To show everyone what she means, she creates these ice roses right in front of them. Then she tells the whole class to give it a shot themselves. Amelia manages to make a single rose that looks like it's made of glass. It's actually really beautiful. Ray tries too, but all he ends up with is a plain ice cube. The other students start laughing at him for messing it up. Ray heads to the library after class ends. While he's there, he runs into this girl who mentions she's really into the research of some wizard doctor named Ainsworth. She introduces herself as Elisa Griffith and decides to sit down next to Ray. Ray gets excited and tells her he's been into Ainsworth's work for a long time too. They're chatting about it when Ray notices her hood and asks why she keeps it on. Elisa admits she feels weird about her ears. She's half-elf, so they look different. Ray looks at her and says her ears are beautiful the way they are. That makes Elisa smile for real, and just like that, they're friends. When Ray gets back to where he's staying, there's already someone in his room. This guy introduces himself as Evie Armstrong. He makes it clear right away that he's not going to treat Ray badly like the other nobles do. He doesn't care about Ray being ordinary. The two of them hit it off immediately and became close friends. Ray wakes up early the next day and goes running. During his jog, he meets Rebecca Bradley, who's a third-year student. They talk for a bit and get along well. Another day goes by, and Ray's on his way to see Abby Garnett, who's someone he knew before coming to the academy. He's walking fast and bumps right into another girl. She tells him her name is Clarice Cleveland. Ray asks about her family, and Clarice mentions they're pretty famous among nobles. She wants to explain more, but she remembers she has to do something and takes off running. Ray finally catches up with Abby just like he planned, and after talking to her, he heads straight to his sword training class. There, the instructor pairs him up with Albert for a sparring match. When the match begins, Albert charges at him right away, swinging his sword with full force, but Ray calmly blocks the attack like it's no big deal. Seeing that makes Albert angry, and he rushes in again with a strong stab, putting all his strength into it. Everyone watching thinks Albert is about to win easily, but Ray suddenly counters with his own thrust, and his sword shatters Albert's blade into pieces. The fight ends in just a few seconds, and Ray is the one left standing as the winner. The following day arrives, and Ray decides to check out the Environmental Research Club. When he walks in, he sees a bunch of really buff guys just hanging out in their plots. Evie's already part of this club, and Ray thinks it would be cool to join too. The muscular guys take one look at Ray and dismiss him immediately. They tell him he looks way too scrawny for their club. Ray doesn't argue with them. He just takes off his shirt, and suddenly everyone can see he's actually pretty ripped underneath his clothes. All the guys in the room look surprised and impressed. Then Ray pulls out this Golden Hunter card and shows it to everyone. That kind of card is super rare, and it's really unusual for someone who's not from a noble family to have one. After seeing all this, the Environmental Research Club decides Ray can join them. But Ray's not satisfied with just one club. He heads over to where the Gardening Club meets, and Rebecca runs that club since she's in her third year. Ray walks into a room where a bunch of girls are sitting around having tea together. He finds a place to sit and asks Rebecca if he can become a member. Rebecca seems totally fine with it at first, but then one of her friends named Dina stands up and stops the whole thing. Dina accuses Ray of having bad intentions. She thinks Ray's only interested in joining because he wants to get close to Rebecca romantically. Ray tries to explain that's not why he's there, but Dina refuses to believe anything he says. Rebecca values Dina's opinion, so she tells Dina she can test Ray by having him do some work first. Dina takes Ray up to the roof terrace and gives him an assignment. He has 7 days to create a complete flower garden up there. This task is incredibly hard to pull off because Ray needs to clear away every single blade of grass from the entire roof before he can even start building the actual garden. The work exhausts Ray, but he refuses to give up. Within just 1 day, he manages to get rid of all the grass covering the rooftop. The second day comes and Ray begins working the soil, getting it ready for planting flowers. When the third day rolls around, Ray starts building small brick walls that form the edges of the garden. Rebecca comes up to check how things are going that day. She brings Ray a fruit sandwich, and he really enjoys eating it. After he finishes, Rebecca asks him something kind of awkward. She wants permission to feel his arm muscles because she's never actually touched a guy's muscles before in her life. Ray tells her it's okay, and when Rebecca touches his arms, she seems really impressed by how strong he is. What neither of them realizes is that several of their classmates are watching this whole scene from another building nearby, and Amelia happens to be one of those students watching them. The following day arrives, and Ray finishes the entire garden project. Rebecca can't believe he actually completed it because he didn't just build the garden. He got it done way ahead of the 7-day deadline she gave him. She praises his work and officially approves his membership application for the gardening club. Ray's walking back to where he's staying when he runs into Clarice. She's crouched down on the ground looking at some bugs crawling around. Ray goes over to talk to her, and Clarice gets all embarrassed and flustered. She explains that she's a noble who happens to really like insects, which is weird because most nobles prefer prettier animals like horses, dogs, and rabbits. Ray tells her there's absolutely nothing wrong with liking insects. He mentions that he loves them too. Hearing this makes Clarice really happy, and it strengthens the friendship that's growing between them. When the next day comes around, Ray goes to class and finds Abby there. Abby pulls him aside and tells him some important information. She says there might be a spy from another kingdom who's pretending to be a student at their academy. Abby explains that finding this spy is crucial because if the spy manages to escape, tons of secret information could get leaked to enemy kingdoms. After talking with Abby, Ray heads to his regular classes. During the lesson, the teacher calls on Ray and asks him to describe the different levels of sorcery that exist. Ray explains that sorcery has 3 main levels, which are low level, mid-level, and saint level. He doesn't stop there though. Ray also breaks down all the different types of chain sorcery in really detailed ways. The whole class, including the teacher, finds his explanation impressive. Miss Gray announces to everyone that practical training exercises will begin soon. She instructs all the students to organize themselves into groups. Ray immediately partners up with Evie since they're already friends. They need more people on their team though, so Ray approaches Elisa and asks if she wants to join them. Elisa happily agrees to be part of their group. Then something unexpected happens. Amelia walks over to where Ray's standing and asks if she can join their team as well. Ray accepts her offer right away without any hesitation, and now their team is complete. The next day arrives and all the students head into the forest for their practical training. Their assignment is straightforward but challenging. They need to survive in the forest for a full 24 hours without calling for help or assistance. The forest is dangerous because it's full of monsters roaming around. Ray's team enters the forest together and they decide to split up the different tasks between themselves. While they're walking through the trees, Elisa suddenly comes face to face with a giant hornet. Before the hornet can attack her, Ray leaps in front of Elisa and swings his sword once. The hornet gets cut cleanly in half and falls to the ground dead. All 3 of Ray's teammates look amazed by how fast he moved. As they continue through the forest, Ray keeps killing every single monster they run into, and he makes it look easy every time. The second day of training begins while they're still trying to navigate their way out of the forest. Ray suddenly hears someone screaming in the distance. He immediately runs toward the sound to see what's happening. When he gets there, he discovers Albert's team is in serious danger. A giant insect monster is attacking them. Most of Albert's teammates are already trapped and stuck to a tree trunk. Albert himself is lying on his back on the ground, shaking with fear. Ray charges straight at the monster without hesitating. The creature shoots sticky liquid out of its mouth at Ray, but Ray dodges it with incredible accuracy and speed. Albert watches in shock as Ray launches himself into the air and drives his sword directly between the monster's eyes. The creature dies instantly from the attack. Ray's teammates show up right after that happens. They all start working together to free Albert's team members from where they're stuck. Then something strange happens. Someone hiding in the shadows uses magic on the dead monster's body. The magic brings the creature back to life, and now it's ready to fight again. The monster comes back to life looking even more powerful than it was before. Ray doesn't hesitate for even a second and goes straight at it with his sword ready. What surprises Ray is that the creature actually manages to block his sword strike, which is pretty impressive. The monster swings at Ray next, but Ray blocks the attack with his blade and they both end up locked in place, no one able to move forward. Ray feels confused about how strong this creature is. He starts thinking something weird is going on here because why would such a powerful monster be wandering around in a training forest where beginner students are practicing? Ray jumps back to create some distance, and that's when his friends step up to help him out. Amelia starts using her fire magic and creates a huge wall of flames that stands between Ray and the monster. Evie shows off his incredible physical strength by lifting up this massive boulder and hurling it at the creature. Elisa adds her wind magic to the attack, making the boulder fly right away and lifts her onto his back, carrying her all the way to the main school building where it's safe. Later on, Ray quickly realizes something though. None of the other students look happy about an ordinary person like him winning the competition. They all seem annoyed or angry about it. Ray doesn't let it bother him too much since he's gotten used to this kind of treatment. Turns out his master is actually Dr. Lydia Ainsworth, the same person whose research Elisa loves reading about. Lydia has been teaching Ray everything he knows since he was just a little kid. Ray says hello to her and they both sit down together to enjoy some tea and cake. Lydia starts talking about her newest research project. She explains that this time she's studying the most crucial part of any human being, which is the brain. Ray finds this really interesting and wants to learn more about it. Lydia spends time explaining all the details of her research to him so he can understand what she's working on. After they finish talking, Ray takes Lydia outside for a walk through the forest. Lydia can't walk on her own because she uses a wheelchair. Chat about how life is going. Lydia asks Ray about what he does every day at the academy. Ray mentions that he's made several friends at school, which makes Lydia really happy to hear. She tells Ray he needs to look after himself and also take care of the people who are important to him. Before Ray leaves, Lydia next morning comes around and Ray goes out for his usual jog. During his run, he sees Elisa walking toward the library because she wants to study. Ray asks if he can go with her to the library. This question catches different clothes first, and then they meet up again to go to the library together. Once they're inside, Elisa picks out another book about Lydia's experiments to read. Ray opens up the book that Lydia gave him yesterday and starts reading through it. When they decide to leave the library, they notice Clarice walking out too. Apparently, she was also in the library studying this whole time. Ray invites Clarice to come to have lunch with him. Clarice says yes to the invitation, and during their meal together, both Clarice and Elisa end up becoming really good friends with each other. After lunch finishes, they all go their separate ways. Clarice and Elisa leave together while Ray starts heading back by himself. Family members. They decide to take a walk together to a park that's close by. Ray agrees without thinking twice about it. They go. Funny happens. Amelia runs out of the changing room wearing only her plot because a spider scared her inside. Despite that awkward moment, the date goes really well overall and they have a good time together. When they're done shopping, they walk back toward the school together. The sun is starting to. Gray calls him to her office. She makes him some tea and sits down with him. Miss Gray tells Ray she feels really sorry about how badly the other students treat him just because he comes from an ordinary family instead of a noble one. Ray tries to reassure her by saying it doesn't really bother him that much. Miss Gray makes a promise to Ray. She says she's going to work even harder from now on, and more than anything else, she'll do her absolute best to be an excellent teacher for him specifically. Ray thanks her for caring about him and then heads back to his dorm room. Even though his day is ending, Ray can't stop thinking about the spy problem. Ray hangs out with Evie the following day since they're gym buddies now. Evie wants Ray to come shopping for protein supplements after classes end. Ray has to turn down the offer nicely because Rebecca already asked him to stop by the gardening club. Rebecca starts showing Ray all these fascinating plants that actually have magical properties built into them. Some of them are even carnivorous plants that eat other living things, which Ray finds super cool. Rebecca looks over at Ray and tells him she's grateful he became her friend. She explains that everyone in the club acts nice, but she has a hard time really connecting with them on a deeper level. Plus, she never gets to share knowledge about plants like this with them because they're not actually interested in learning. Ray assures Rebecca that his interest is completely genuine and he wants to absorb everything she can teach him about these plants. This makes Rebecca incredibly happy. Where sword practice is happening. Amelia is already there fighting against class who's clearly struggling. Amelia keeps forcing her backward with each strike until she delivers one powerful final hit. The girl's sword goes flying out of her grip and lands on the ground. Amelia wins the match. She immediately spins around toward the instructor while students around her start cheering. Amelia demands that the instructor let her fight Ray White next. The instructor looks uncomfortable with this request because Amelia ranks as one of the strongest students in the whole school, and Ray doesn't have particularly impressive magic skills. Amelia turns directly to Ray and asks if he has any problem with fighting her. Ray says he's fine with it. She pivots and starts launching a rapid series of strikes at him from different angles. Ray blocks every single one of them. And then Amelia compliments Ray's sword skills before rushing in again. She continues attacking aggressively, while Ray focuses on blocking and deflecting her blade away from him. The instructor declares Amelia the winner of the bout. That afternoon, they all sit together for lunch. Evie keeps pestering Ray for more details about half, which completely cancels out the magic. Before Ray can respond to anyone, a sudden burst of gravity magics. Ray immediately understands that she's been responsible for all the strange things happening lately. She must have been controlling those monsters in the forest to kidnap Stu to use his full power. He creates a massive ice wall in front of his friends, protecting them from the fire attack. Getting skipped over right now. But when it is all done, the professor decides she is going to use everything she has left in one last try to beat Ray somehow. Gray makes a bunch of dark energy hands really fast and sends them flying at Ray, but he shoots ice blades back at her that destroy all the magic hands she made. Gray tries doing the same attack one more time, but but Ray stops it again. And while this is happening, Amelia and the others know, but Ray still has one more trick that he has not shown her yet, and he uses it to make a huge blizzard form all around Gray, which shocks her completely and takes her by total surprise, covering her up entirely. When the blizzard finally stops, Gray is frozen completely to death, and there are some roses growing on her frozen body just to make it look nice, like Ray is trying to be some Instagram influencer or something. Right after that happens, Ray falls down on his knees because he is so tired and changes back to how he normally looks, and because of what he did, they do not even have one scratch on them anywhere. Abby says he did a really good job with everything, and Lydia even pats his head and tells him she is proud of him and says he can come to her house whenever he wants to. Abby tells Ray that his friends are outside waiting to see him, and she leaves the room, and right away all his friends come flooding in and surround his bed completely. Ray says sorry to his friends for keeping his life secret from all of them, and he explains that he is one of the 7 Grand Sorcerers who are called the Iceblade Sorcerers. Ray tells them he was part of the Great War that happened a few years back, but he lost control during it and blasted everything away everywhere, and it was only because Lydia helped him that he could get control of himself again. But Ray is a nice person unlike some others, and he tells Albert that saying sorry to someone takes a lot of strength to do, and he forgives him for anything he did before, and Ray says Amanda figures that Ray is definitely worried about having Carol as their new teacher, since he knows exactly how much trouble she causes whenever move Carol from teaching their class, because kids these days are already messed up enough, and having a mommy teach them will make everything worse. Abby explains to him that Carol was the only person available who wanted to teach the class, which is why they decided to hire her for the job. Ray says he will even teach the class himself if Abby agrees to kick Carol out of the position. Right at that moment, Carol shows up behind Ray and starts harassing him directly in front of Abby without caring about anything at all. Ray quickly escapes from the office room, and the following day he stands up on the ramparts next to Clarice, and they both write down notes about worthy opponents and players competing in this match, and Ray demonstrates his strange abilities to predict how fights will go, which creeps Clarice out a lot. Eventually Amelia steps into the ring and manages to defeat her opponent super easily in just 6 seconds before leaving the ring without saying a single word. All the people watching start cheering for her victory, but Amelia does not look happy about winning at all, and Ray thinks this is happening because winning is way too obvious for her since everyone competing around her is pretty trash, which means there is nobody who can give her tough competition that would help her improve and grow. Ray ends up walking over to Rebecca and asks her what information she knows about the opponents competing, and Rebecca mentions a girl whose name is Arianne, who happens to be Amelia's rival in competitions. Rebecca explains that even though Amelia and Arianne used to be the best of friends over the past couple of years, their friendship has been suffering really badly lately. The following day comes around and Ray along with all his other friends wait up on the ramparts once more, observing Amelia's fight as she defeats her final opponent with way too much ease as well, which gives her a spot in the upcoming competition that is happening soon. But once again, Amelia does not look happy even in the slightest bit about her victory. During the night, Ray decides that he is definitely going to help Amelia out and pulls out a book that Lydia had given to him earlier so he can keep following his training routine even when she is not around to help him. The next evening arrives and Ray confronts Amelia while she is heading back to her dorm room and asks her if she feels satisfied with her victories against all the people she has been fighting against recently. Amelia tells him that she does not feel ready at all for what is coming, and she is pretty certain that Arianne is going to defeat her easily just like what happened the last time they fought, which completely ruined their lifelong friendship together. Ray shows Amelia the book that Lydia gave him earlier, and explains to her that there is still about a month left before the tournament starts happening, and if she wants his help, he can train her so she grows stronger before the competition. Amelia agrees to his offer right away, but she has absolutely no idea what kind of terrible hell she just signed herself up for by agreeing. The following morning comes and Amelia goes out to meet Ray early in the morning, and Ray suddenly jumps right in front of her while wearing a really weird mask and announces to her that starting from this moment, he is now her master and she has to follow everything he says without asking any questions about it. Amelia seems unsure about this at first, but after Ray does some shouting at her, she ends up agreeing to all his demands, and the very first thing Ray tells her to do is take a 20-kilometer run all around the school grounds without using any kind of magical abilities to help her. Amelia looks at Ray like he is crazy and tells him there is absolutely no way she can do something like that. But Ray tells her she has to complete it no matter what happens, and that she really does not have any choice in the matter. The two of them start running together, and when the run finally ends, Amelia is down on her knees breathing really hard because she is not used to doing this type of intense training at all. Ray tells Amelia that today was just a short practice run, and starting from tomorrow their real actual training is going to begin for her. Ray starts training Amelia seriously from the following day, forcing her to do weighted one-arm push-ups and weighted pull-ups. And he also trains her in the art of slavery by making her roll a huge boulder up a hill, which obviously ends up coming smashing back down toward her every time. Amelia gets so incredibly tired each and every day that she ends up falling asleep during class every single day, which makes all her friends start worrying about what is happening to her. The next morning comes around and Ray shows up at her dorm again and starts banging a bunch of pans together really loudly while screaming at Amelia to wake up right now. But he gets called out by Rebecca and her friend, who start yelling at Ray for entering a girls' dorm without being invited or announced first. But Ray immediately says sorry to them and explains that this is really important for their training schedule when he suddenly notices Amelia running away from the dorm building and he takes off to chase after her. Ray arrives at the library where he discovers Clarice and Elisa studying together, and he asks both of them if they have seen Amelia anywhere around here, but they both reply to him that they have not seen her at all. Ray decides to activate his special sonic soundwave ability, and just like a bat he uses echolocation to locate exactly where Amelia is hiding from him. Ray enters an empty classroom and grabs hold of Amelia's hand, pulling her right out of the room, and then forces her to run extra laps as punishment for running away from her training session. The day after that, Ray goes up to visit the environmental club where all the really buff guys are relaxing in a sauna together, and Ray asks the club president to put together a cheerleading squad that is made up entirely of buff guys specifically for Amelia, and the president ends up agreeing to do it before giving Ray a bag filled with female clothes that Ray had requested from him earlier. The following day comes and Ray puts on women's clothing and walks out from his dorm building and sees Amelia running laps around the school grounds, but she does not recognize who he is at all. Ray ends up going inside the school where Arianne studies and sneaks across the lawn while hiding himself inside an empty cardboard box. And while doing this he sees a girl who is crying and he approaches her like he is some kind of total creep. The crying little girl turns out to be Arianne's younger sister, and she is upset because she cannot locate her older sister anywhere. Ray tells the little girl to stop crying right now because he is going to help her find her sister, and she happily agrees to let him help her with this. Ray takes the little girl all around the school campus while the guys and girls around them seem to be really attracted to his beauty in disguise. Anyway, Ray keeps walking around while acting like he is a noble schoolgirl, when all of a sudden the little girl sees her sister and both of them walk over to Arianne, who is sitting underneath a beautiful Victorian structure while drinking tea just like a fancy English lady would do. Arianne is happy to see her sister even though she was not even searching for her, and she tells Ray to sit down with her while leaving her sister outside in the open where she could get lost all over again. This woman seriously has the mental capacity that matches an oversized soggy donut that nobody wants. Ray sits down next to Arianne and she immediately gets straight to the point, telling Ray that she knows he does not belong to this academy and that he needs to introduce himself as who he really is. Ray ends up thinking that Arianne figured out he is actually a guy, and he apologizes using his original voice, which shocks the living crap out of Arianne, who stares at him with a really shocked expression on her face as Ray tells her that his name is Ray White and he studies at Arnold Academy. Arianne says she knows his name already since he is famous for being one of the very first peasants to ever get into such a distinguished university, and she has even heard stories about his exploits during battle. However, Arianne still cannot get over the fact that Ray is actually a guy because he looks absolutely perfect wearing a girl's outfit. Arianne tells Ray that she has always wanted to see how he performs in battle, and she invites him to have a duel with her, which Ray happily accepts right away. The two of them exchange polite pleasantries while Arianne begs Ray to please use a female voice because his regular voice is very distracting to her, which Ray obviously agrees to do. The battle begins and Arianne immediately jumps forward with an insanely quick attack that Ray barely manages to dodge before she spins around for another slash, and both their swords clash together. However, Arianne is really skilled at these types of duels, and she immediately drops down low and comes back up with a beautiful magic slash that breaks Ray's sword in half even though Ray tried to defend against it, and Arianne wins the duel against him. When the battle is over, some weird lady takes Arianne's little sister away, and Arianne does not even ask any questions about it before turning toward Ray and asking him if he is planning to take part in the upcoming tournament competition. Ray replies that he cannot participate in it, and he also mentions that he is helping a friend of his train, who is someone Arianne knows really well. Arianne seems confused about who he is talking about, so Ray tells her that he is helping Amelia train for the tournament. Arianne's eyes immediately start glowing as she begins asking if Amelia is doing fine lately. Ray replies that Amelia is doing really well and has gotten several times stronger than before, so Arianne should be careful in her next fight because Amelia is going to be the one who wins at this time. Arianne just smiles at Ray and tells him that she will really look forward to fighting Amelia, and Ray leaves after their conversation ends. By the time Ray gets back to his own academy, the sun has already set completely, and while he is on his way back he ends up seeing a white-haired girl running toward him while crying, and the girl ends up tripping over something, but Ray immediately catches her before she falls and asks if she is okay. The girl turns out to be Rebecca's younger sister, and she has been crying because she cannot make the decision about whether she wants to come study at this place or not, since she has heard the people here are really mean to others. But this one act of kindness from Ray makes her believe that this academy is actually the right place for her to be, and she runs away after saying thanks to Ray. However, Ray heads back to the ramparts where Amelia has just finished completing her training and is breathing really hard from exhaustion. Ray calls out to Amelia and tells her that he is really happy that she has been training so nicely lately. And at first the girls standing there do not even realize that the girl standing on top of the ramparts is actually Ray. But Ray tells them that it is him and he was simply on a mission during the day, which shocks all of them. The following day, Ray ends up taking all of them to Lydia's place, where each of them introduces themselves to Lydia, and Elisa, who is a really big fan of Lydia, shows her the collection of experiments that she has been keeping in her personal journal. After all the introductions are done, Lydia takes Amelia to a different room and reassures Amelia that she is a really strong person and that even Ray has been sending her constant letters to let her know about Amelia's progress. And even Lydia thinks that Amelia is ready to win the entire tournament. After that conversation, Ray holds Amelia's final test inside the jungles, which is an actual mock battle against him that takes place, and Amelia ends up winning the battle. The next day finally arrives, and the tournament starts happening, and the entire stadium gets filled with people from several different academies who have all come here to watch the spectacle unfold. Amelia gets dressed up and heads in for her first match, and on the way there she ends up meeting Arianne, and both of them have a little bit of a Cold War moment before Amelia continues to the ring. And her first fight is against a green-haired boy from a different school who is wielding a giant sword. The battle begins, and the green boy immediately dives forward with some massive slashes, which are honestly too clumsy to be effective. Amelia is easily able to jump over his head while dodging all of his blows, and as soon as the green boy turns around to try attacking her again, Amelia uses her fire magic to create a small mine that explodes right in the green boy's face, destroying his pose and ending the battle with Amelia winning. Everyone in the stadium screams in encouragement while Ray smiles at her victory, but Ray ends up leaving the arena to go near some ruins where Albert is sitting all alone. Albert seems to be a totally changed man now as he thinks about his game plan for the tournament. Ray tells Albert that he believes in him, and he also believes that Albert has exactly what it takes to win the entire tournament. Albert smiles at Ray and thanks him for his encouraging words, but sadly when Albert goes over to the ring for his match, he finds out that his opponent is none other than the beast Arianne herself. The battle starts happening, and both of them end up engaging in an onslaught of blows while attacking and counterattacking each other constantly. Surprisingly, Albert is actually keeping up with Arianne during the fight. When both their swords clash in the middle, however, Arianne ends up using a magical blow that knocks Albert down to the ground. Usually, Albert would have admitted defeat right there, but the newfound friendship and trust he has in Ray makes him move his body as Albert gets up once again and grabs his sword before running forward with a swift attack that totally catches Arianne off guard and disarms her completely. Albert attempts to finish the battle by landing the final hit on Arianne, but Arianne manages to grab hold of the sword and breaks it in half before she punches Albert really hard in the gut, which knocks him down once again, and she wins the battle against him. While Ray is on his way to a meeting that is being led by Abby, he surprisingly notices the leader of the environmental club following behind him. Ray finds out later that Carlo is actually working as an intelligence agent, and the buff guy's club leader named Lex is her younger brother who works as the head of student security at the school. Both of them are apparently members of the Hale family, along with some other dudes who are dressed in really weird uniforms, and they are responsible for handling all intelligence-related affairs throughout the land. Abby then explains to everyone that the Grim Reapers have managed to infiltrate the Magic Chevalier event, and their primary goal is kidnapping or killing the daughters of the most noble families, which is why everyone needs to be really cautious about everything. Back at the arena, Rebecca wins her match and moves forward to the final round, while another contender whose name is Lucas Faust, who can be called a Japanese version of the Flash, unbelievably wins his fight in a record-breaking time of just 2 seconds, which shocks the entire crowd watching. Meanwhile, Elisa and Clarice are feeling troubled about Amelia, and they share their concerns with Ray, explaining to him that Amelia has refused to leave her room or say even a single word to anyone lately. The reason is that her fierce contender is not going to give her an easy fight at all, because Arianne is seriously training like she is preparing for some heavyweight championship to the point where she actually destroys her punching bag completely. Later during the night, Ray decides he needs to do something about Amelia's situation, so he stays outside her door and gives her some really long boring speech about wanting to know what the contents of her heart are. When Amelia finally lets Ray come inside her room, she expresses her fears about disappointing everyone who has really high expectations of her, because even though she desperately wants to win the match against Arianne, she feels caged by the fear of being defeated by her rival, and now Amelia sees no point in continuing to live a meaningless life anymore. In a bid to lighten her spirit, Ray tells Amelia that even though living can feel pointless sometimes, humans are actually allowed to create their own reasons to live happy, meaningful lives, and she can start by creating loving memories with her friends. While holding her hands, Ray tells Amelia that he would really like to be by her side every single step of the way, and after hearing this, Amelia falls into his arms and cries profusely. After crying like a toddler who is looking for her mummy, Amelia feels ashamed of herself and pretends to fall asleep to avoid Ray's gaze while he watches her. Ray's memory suddenly flashes back to the time when he told Amelia to destroy the rose on his chest during their training. Ray's opening attack pushed Amelia backwards and gave him the chance to prepare for another attack as he jumped higher into the air. However, Amelia found an opening in his defense and quickly activated a butterfly using her magic, which set fire onto the rose on his chest. After seeing Amelia achieve such an impressive feat, Ray believes that nothing would be too difficult for Amelia to achieve anymore, so he tells her that he believes in her abilities. The day finally arrives when a winner will emerge between the two fiercest rookies in the entire kingdom, which are Amelia and Arianne. Already Elisa is worried that Amelia may not have gotten enough sleep, but Ray reassures her that he has already taken control of the situation by spending the entire night in Amelia's room. After hearing this information, Evie's twisted brain gets the completely wrong idea about what happened, but Elisa reminds him that Ray can be really clueless when it comes to expressing himself and talking to women properly. Meanwhile, Clarice is seen running through a dark hallway as she rushes to make it to time for Amelia's match, but without knowing it, a mysterious figure appears from the ceiling behind her and descends down to the floor. In the changing room, Amelia shyly requests another hug from Ray to ease her tension before the match, and Ray does so while assuring her that she has everything it takes to emerge as the winner at the arena today. Lex unexpectedly informs the announcer to hold on because something really urgent came up that needs attention. Then Lex proceeds to tell Ray that Clarice has gone missing along with 8 other students from noble families. Ray decides to trust his gut feelings and begins his search below the building where they are. Later on, Carol meets the other presenter who announces that the match between the top 2 contending rookies is now starting. The fight opens up with an aggressive attack coming from Arianne, as she throws her sword upwards into the air and magically activates an electric power that flows from her armor. Using this overflowing power, Arianne jets her sword toward Amelia at a supernatural speed that takes Amelia by surprise and lands her on the ground, which amazes the audience watching. However, when Arianne charges forward again, Amelia patiently waits before creating a whirling ball of pink smoke that explodes and completely pushes Arianne backwards, catching her completely unaware. Meanwhile, Ray finds Clarice and other missing students in a hall where they are lying fast asleep on the floor, so Ray picks Clarice up and attempts to wake her up. Clarice opens her eyes to find Ray holding her, but she also sees a magical barrier appearing above them in the air. Suki explains that it is an interference spell cast by the Grim Reapers to shut them off from the outside world because Clarice keeps bothering him with her needless tantrums. Ray tells Clarice to shut the heck up and let him focus on what he is doing. Then Ray instantly lifts Clarice on his shoulder and runs to focus the attention of Grim Reapers on him instead. Ray abruptly stops running and creates 4 magical swords that he uses to fight against the Grim Reapers, but Clarice is allergic to being quiet, so Ray warns her that she could cut off her own tongue with her excessive needless yelling. However, the room suddenly goes completely dark and hides the Grim Reapers from view, but Ray activates his spell so powerful that it destroys the magical barrier above them completely. Ray's spell even counters Arianne's attack by nullifying her magic completely, which drops Arianne to the ground. While everyone in the arena is confused about what just happened to the fight, Carol knows that this could only be Ray's special form of magic called the anti-material field. To finish them off, Ray creates a field of ice that covers the entire floor and traps the escaping Grim Reapers, while Lex tells Ray to let him take over from there so Ray can return to watch the match between Amelia and Arianne. Up till this very moment, Clarice still has not put a zip on her lips at all. Back to the 2 ladies fighting. The fight has not been easy for any of them so far. And as the announcer calls for the final round, Arianne resorts to using her supreme move with all her might. Arianne charges herself with an overwhelming amount of lightning with a force more than anything she had ever used on the arena before. This is both shocking and concerning to the audience, as some of them become concerned for Amelia's safety. Seeing this happening, Amelia is visibly surprised to find that Arianne had been fighting using her lowest power and wonders what is in store for her now. Arianne eventually charges toward Amelia, so Amelia creates an explosion to defend herself, but Arianne dodges it and mocks the weak effort, telling Amelia to give up while she runs like the Flash and punches Amelia into the air. Still, Amelia steadies herself against the attack and lands on her feet, but Arianne charges up an overwhelming load of power that fires Amelia even higher into the air than before. Everyone watches with a horrified look on their faces as Amelia lands on the ground from that terrifying height. Amelia tries to lift herself off the ground, but fails to do so and begins to accept defeat. Sadly, the faces of her friends come flashing before her eyes. But suddenly Ray comes running in the entrance and shouts her name, telling her to get up. As Amelia lifts her head, something red sparkles in her eyes, and with a command she calls casualty. Amelia instantly activates a powerful beam of protection around her, with her pretty little butterflies floating around the entire arena, including Ray and Clarice, who are full of wonder as they witness the fullness of Amelia's power. As Arianne watches in shock, Amelia tells her to give up at this point because all her efforts to touch her would be in vain, as Amelia has become literally untouchable. But Arianne, being a stubborn cow, keeps throwing pointless punches toward Amelia, but her efforts are in vain. According to Carol, this form of magic is an interference concept which originates from the butterfly effect of the chaos theory. Carol says magic is so rare and special that it cannot be used by just anyone, and describes it to be a type of magic which interrupts a sequence of events by overriding them. Arianne's futile attempts continue for a while, so Amelia sends a butterfly in her direction, and in split seconds Arianne is hit by an explosion which throws her to the ground, while her father and younger sister exclaim in shock. Meanwhile, Clarice continues to cheer Amelia on, but in no time Amelia begins to bleed from her nose and eventually coughs out blood. Carol explains that this is because Amelia's Ingram is too overworked by this form of magic, and Ray says Amelia is really close to overheating. At this point, even Arianne is concerned for Amelia, who states her determination not to back down. Arianne also refuses to back down and is determined not to lose, so she rushes at Amelia with a full-force attack. However, Amelia escapes the attack and Arianne ends up punching a dust of pink powder. Amelia creates an explosion which only breaks Arianne's hand shield, leaving no scratch on her. Simultaneously, they both kick each other, but no one gets the other because they are in a gridlock. Even when they headbutt each other, they are equally affected by their blows. As they watch this, Arianne's father and sister continue to cheer her on while Evie and Elisa cheer Amelia on. Everyone but Amelia's grumpy father is full of cheers for the fighting girls. Amelia is able to land a blow on Arianne, but this does not earn her any significant point because at this juncture both ladies have become rather exhausted. However, each with her last strength and determined not to lose, they both rush toward the other with a final powerful move until someone's rose is finally destroyed. A few minutes later, Arianne regains consciousness on Amelia's lap, surprised to see that she lost the match. Arianne tells Amelia how horrible her face looks, like someone with a facial plastic surgery gone wrong. Arianne then compliments Amelia for how strong she has become and tells her to stop crying because she had won after all. Amelia attributes her victory to friends like Ray and the others who believe in her, but states that Arianne has been the actual reason why she continually strived to be strong. Arianne also tells Amelia that she was driven to be better every day because she wanted to be a good role model for Amelia, knowing that Amelia doubted herself after their first fight. Tearfully, the ladies reconcile while apologizing to each other, hugging each other just as they did as children. Arianne accepts defeat and congratulates Amelia, who is immediately announced as the winner of the rookies bracket. The audience gets in an uproar as they celebrate both ladies for fighting valiantly till the end. In the hallway, the fathers of both girls meet, and Amelia's father looks like the Grinch, always saying Amelia could have done better, but Arianne's father tells him to suck it up and be happy for once in his life. As both fathers playfully warn each other that their daughters will become even stronger and win against the other in another battle. Later, Ray visits Amelia, who is all dressed up in bandages and stitches to check on her health and ensure her recovery. Amelia confirms that she is getting better and tells Ray that although the training was brutal and very vigorous, she liked some parts of it and was glad that it was not all a waste of time. However, when Amelia remembers the night that Ray spent in her room, she suddenly becomes flushed, displaying her embarrassment while Ray watches with confusion in his eyes. Amelia asks Ray if he knew about her magical power all along, but Ray tells her that he only knew that she was tremendously talented after his last fight with her during practice, but did not know in detail what exact magical power she possessed. Ray congratulates Amelia and tells her that talent could be inherited, but her victory in the match was a result of her hard work in combination with her talent. The next day, Amelia is happy to no longer be trapped in her birdcage of nobility, and ventures out with the others to cheer for Rebecca on the final day of the Magic Chevalier. Rebecca's opponent is announced to be Lucas Faust, the champion from the other match that won his match in 2 seconds, and yes, he is the Japanese version of the Flash. The battle line is drawn and Rebecca pulls out a sword, But in a surprise move within the blink of an eye, Lucas immediately places his foot on the ground and uses a special move called the 8th Secret Technique, which clouds the arena with darkness. Within that short time frame, he swiftly shatters Rebecca's rose. Everyone in the audience watches in shock and horror as Lucas is declared the winner of the tournament. As Lucas walks past Ray in the hallway, he recognizes Ray as the famous Ice Blade sorcerer. Ray takes Lucas by surprise when he acknowledges that he also knows that Lucas is the new Peerless Blade sorcerer. Ray wonders why Lucas competed in a match made for students, so Lucas tells him that it was all a show for Ray to know that he was around the corner. Lucas challenges Ray to a fight that will happen in a year's time, when he proves that the Peerless Blade sorcerer is the strongest sorcerer in the land, not Ray. Later, the beautiful Lady Carol continues to annoy Lydia, but Abby tells Carol that this is not the time or place for that, and opens a door where all the Grim Reapers have been bound. Carol uses her spellbinding magic to hypnotize them into her Barbie playhouse, where she forces them to dance ridiculously to her own amusement. However, when Carol tells them to reveal the secrets of their dark organization, their heads explode one after the other, causing Carol to fall down. The Magic Chevalier had come to an end, so Principal Abby delivered the closing speech with a vote of thanks to all the participants who fought in the contest, but Rebecca spots her father walking into a room with a man. During a class meeting, Ray suggests that his classmates run a maid cafe in preparation for the upcoming cultural festival, but this is met by resistance from the spoiled brats who claim to be too noble to be dressed as filthy housemaids. Actually, this was all Amelia's lifelong dream, but she was certain that nobody would willingly offer to be dressed as a maid. So Amelia pitched the idea to Ray and caused him to fall in love with it by asking him to imagine how they would all look in pretty short maid dresses. While Amelia spoke, Ray could only imagine the beautiful Carla in her usual maid dress, so he also got fired up about the idea and decided to pitch it to the class. Now, despite the initial resistance of the class, Ray makes a motivational speech about how revolutionary it would be for maids to act like power belongs to them. Ray is seconded by Carol, who reveals herself in a cute maid's dress, and seeing how heavenly she looks in the attire, everyone automatically falls in love with the idea. As Ray celebrates his victory with Amelia, Sarah abruptly announces to Ray that Rebecca had just got engaged, and Rebecca is seen walking in the arms of the man she saw her father talking with at the arena. Looking back, Rebecca's father is shown signing an agreement with her fiancé, and the agreement is sealed by blood and a magical seal. After signing this agreement, Rebecca's supposed fiancé then reassures her father that his daughter is in safe hands with him. Outside, some pink-haired weirdo is shown swallowing magical admission from someone dressed as a mage. The pink-haired weirdo is approached by someone wearing a mask who mocked him by saying that he deserves being called a glutton. However, the masked guy uses his magical giant hand to scavenge the brain of the dead mage lying there. It turns out that the mage was one of the bad guys from the opposing faction, which was also under the eugenics group. To make various groups, the creepy masked guy says he cannot wait to ascend all the way to the top. But in order to do that, he will need to acquire his vessel, which just happens to be Rebecca Bradley. The morning after, Ray comes to congratulate Rebecca on her engagement. But this is awkward, especially for Rebecca, who does not seem to be so happy about it at all. However, Rebecca promises that she will still attend college until she graduates from it. On the other hand, Amelia is going nuts about their maiden dresses and begins to playfully harass Elisa to agree to wear one. But the poor girl is not on board with the idea because she feels the dress will reveal too much skin on her body. When Elisa calls Ray to rescue her from Amelia's creepy pestering behavior, it all proves useless because Ray joins Amelia in convincing Elisa to wear the maiden dress, telling her just how glorious she would look like a pixie maiden. On the other hand, the guys are all energetic as they decorate the hall for their culture festival, and this is only because they cannot wait to see the girls in their cute maid dresses. To top it all, Ray brings them good news, saying that all the ladies, including even Elisa, have agreed to put on the dress. They erupt in celebration, and Albert tells Ray that there is not a single guy who would not want to see ladies in pretty maiden dresses. Later, Ray goes to the student council to submit the class proposal for a maid cafe, but finds that the other members of the council are missing. Rebecca explains that this is their way of rebelling against her for stealing someone's fiancé. It turns out that Lord Evan, to whom Rebecca is currently engaged, was supposed to be engaged to one of the other student council members. Hearing this, Ray offers to help lessen the burden of the duties that have been neglected because of them. After that, Sarah runs to Ray and asks him to remain close to Rebecca because she smells something fishy about her sudden engagement to Evan. Sarah says that she cannot get a word out of Rebecca, who will not reveal anything to her for fear of having her mixed up in any drama. Ray then assures Sarah that he will do everything in his power to help Rebecca. To begin with, Ray visits Lydia and explains Rebecca's situation to her, but when Ray finds that Evan's household is known to be very powerful in sorcery, even among the top 3 noble families of the kingdom, he believes that there is not much to be surprised about seeing that Bradley willingly give their daughter out in marriage to someone from such a powerful family. However, Lydia insists that the engagement is still suspicious because Rebecca is not of age yet, so she tells Carla to look into the matter. On a lighter note, Lydia asks Ray what his class would be doing for the festival, and Ray tells her about the maid cafe. Casually, Ray says that the idea reminds him of Carol's gorgeousness in her outfit, making Lydia jealous to the point that she glares at the maid who turns pink. When Lydia asks what Ray thinks of her in a maiden dress, Ray ruthlessly teases her, saying that it would be difficult to imagine a gorilla wearing such a beautiful dress. With a deathly stare, Lydia rapidly encloses Ray in ice spikes, which forces him to bow and apologize for giving his honest opinion. Lydia tells Ray to anticipate seeing them at the festival, so Ray pretends to be excited even though we know he was just scared of his life. While Rebecca is freshening up, she sees a vision of Ray as a little boy on a battlefield and begins to bleed out from her eye. As Rebecca stares at the mirror, she wonders why she has been having nightmares with him. Maria sees Rebecca bleeding and demands to know why she is up at that time of the night, but Rebecca says she got sweaty and needed to take a shower. Maria is also curious about the blood she saw on the white, but Rebecca covers up quickly, saying it was just a nosebleed. Before Rebecca leaves, Maria asks her if she is happy about her engagement, but Rebecca pretends to be cool with it and wishes Maria a love-filled marriage. However, the moment Rebecca gets into her room, she weeps bitterly. Rebecca's memory goes back to a time when she and Maria were always being bullied for looking differently. Although Maria was quite the stubborn goat, Rebecca would always watch her back and calm her down. However, when Maria found out about Rebecca's unexpected engagement and asked her if she was happy about it, Rebecca shoved her off and told her to go home because it was none of her business. It was while Maria ran with tears in her eyes that she bumped into Ray, who was dressed as Lily White. We are back to the present, and Ray's classmates are all prepared for the festival. The lady girls look stunned in their pretty maiden dresses and turn pink like rose flowers when Ray compliments their dresses. Amelia captures Ray's attention to her dress and does a full 360-degree turn for him. Amelia also drags Elisa, who almost totally freaks out but gets her share of the compliment too. But this ends up annoying Amelia, the absolute control freak that believes she holds the keys to Ray's icy heart. Clarice shows up dressed as a ghost because in addition to her being a total creep, her weird classmates selected a haunted house theme. Later, Ray spots Rebecca and offers to walk her home, but on their way, Evan shows up and decides to complete the walk back home with her, which obviously dampens Rebecca's mood. Lex shows up soon after, and they attend a meeting where Carla exposes that Evan's household is a creepy haunted house with no evidence of humans living in it. However, Evan has been showing up for political meetings, meaning that he is absolutely trying to cover something up by deceiving the council members of the sorcerers community. At this point, they realize that Evan is most likely a member of the eugenics and is after Rebecca's magical eyes. But while they have this meeting, the masked guy and Glutton are having their own meeting, and the masked guy says that Rebecca will soon be reawakened as Cruz, which will lead to the opening of the gates to a place he calls Akasha. When the masked guy takes off his mask, he shockingly reveals his face as the real Evan. Afterward, Rebecca lies to Rebecca about the agreement her father signed. Her father made a deal to keep his position as leader of the noble families, and part of that deal involves Rebecca. Evan leans close to Rebecca's ear and whispers a threat. He tells her that her younger sister might suffer something terrible if Rebecca doesn't do what he wants. When Rebecca hears this threat about her sister, blood starts coming out of her eyes. Right then, she sees a strange vision in her mind. In the vision, she's standing on empty, dry land with nothing growing on it. Young Ray is there too, crying over someone named Howard who just died. Ray tries using healing magic to bring Howard back to life, but Lydia tells Ray it won't work. Ray refuses to accept that Howard is really gone until Lydia slaps him. She wonders if that young boy in her dream was actually Ray, and she can't figure out what her dreams are trying to tell her. Later, Maria asks Ray if he can help her older sister Rebecca, even though Rebecca has made it very clear Ray pulls Maria into Rebecca. What they don't know is that Rebecca has been hiding nearby, watching them secretly. Seeing Ray hug Maria that way really bothers Rebecca. That night, Rebecca can't sleep at all. She keeps tossing and turning in her bed, unable to stop thinking about what she saw. Meanwhile, Ray picks up a romance novel he got from the library. He starts reading it and tells Evie about the sad love story in the book. The next day goes pretty normally for Ray. He spends time with all the different girls who are his friends and enjoys their company. But when night comes, Ray has a dream. In the dream, Rebecca meets him at a place where people are buried. She asks Ray to tell her the truth about who he really is. Ray wakes up from this dream and discovers that one of his eyes is bleeding. He gets up and goes to wash the blood off his face. During his morning run, and uncomfortable, they only talk about the cultural festival. Her sister decide to visit the maid cafe where Amelia is working. When Arianne doesn't see Ray anywhere, she knows something interesting is about to happen. A second later, Ray appears wearing a pure white maid costume. All the ladies in the cafe actually has a special plan though, and he's got something prepared that nobody knows about yet. At the same time, Clarice is having an amazing time scaring people while wearing her ghost costume. Ray back to his normal appearance and spends the rest of the day hanging out with Rebecca. Maria walks home later carrying a picture of herself and Rebecca together. Suddenly, a lady with white hair just like Maria's stops right in front of her. The mysterious lady warns Maria that Rebecca is going to die soon. Around the same time, Rebecca's father shows up at a meeting with people who run the school. He begs Ray to save his daughter because she doesn't have much time left. To go live with her fiancé instead. The cultural festival keeps going with various activities happening. Rebecca accidentally bumps into Evan while walking around. Evan makes both of them disappear instantly. Ray notices this happen and runs out of the hall immediately. His friends see Ray running and wonder what's going on. Evie gathers all of Ray's friends together for an emergency meeting on the rooftop. Evan tells Rebecca to prepare herself to be destroyed. He creates a magical seal around them that cuts them off completely from the outside world. While this is happening, Ray starts killing monsters below, cutting them down one after another. There are way too many monsters though, and they keep overwhelming him. Maria uses something called the butterfly effect to create protection around Ray. All of Ray's friends start killing monsters alongside him. Evie kicks some of the monsters with tremendous power, sending them flying into the air. Elisa creates a tornado with her wind magic that destroys a bunch of other monsters. Ray's friends tell him to chase after them. Ray rips off his wig and curse exists because of all the massive bloodshed connected to the family's history. Rebecca's younger sister Maria was born with white hair and pale skin because of side effects from Rebecca's birth, and this means that we reached the top of the mountain yet, but the monsters are already there. Something weird happens with Evan. The person who everyone thought was Evan suddenly changes form and turns into a girl with white hair named Lise. The actual Evan appears and traps Lise inside some kind of magical binding. Evan threatens to kill Lise for pretending to be him this whole time. Evan has this crazy look in his eyes and starts screaming like he's lost his mind. He yells that he's going to reach something called Akasha by using Rebecca. Evan creates fire that swirls around Rebecca in a circle. Lise acts fast and makes the flames disappear. She appears right in front of Rebecca and uses magic to send Rebecca far away to safety. Then Lise pushes Evan into a portal that transports him somewhere else entirely. Lise turns to Maria and asks if she's ready for what's coming. She tells Maria that Ray is on his way to finishing everything. Ray finally arrives at the mountaintop. He recognizes one of the monsters there as the Glutton, which is famous for eating the engrams that sorcerers possess. The Glutton charges straight at Ray to attack him. Before the Glutton can reach Ray, a glass seal blocks its path. The seal was created by Lise, but Lise introduces herself and says she's the sorcerer of fabrication. She tells Ray that Lydia and the other powerful sorcerers already know she's involved in this situation. Lise explains her plan. She'll make Rebecca's body overheat, and then Ray needs to seal it using something called Chronos Lock. Ray is the only person who can do this because he's the only one who resonates properly with Rebecca. Lise mentions that she made a deal with Rebecca's father. According to their agreement, she can use whatever method she wants to keep Rebecca safe. Ray doesn't trust that Lise actually cares about Rebecca's well-being. Lise admits she has her own personal reasons for helping. The Glutton interrupts their conversation by breaking free from the glass seal. Ray faces the Glutton and summons a sword made of ice. The Glutton is incredibly strong though. It shatters Ray's ice sword into pieces easily. While Ray deals with the Glutton, Lise goes through the portal to handle Evan. Evan starts threatening Lise like he actually has power over her. Lise tries explaining to Evan that he can't hurt her from where he is. Evan apparently doesn't listen to anything she says. He activates something called the Dark Triad system. He injects some substance directly into his brain. This injection amplifies his dark side and transforms him into a massive dark monster. The monster version of Evan reaches out trying to grab Lise. Lise doesn't look worried at all because there's a magical barrier between them that she already told Evan about multiple times, but he ignores her warnings. To Evan's complete shock, Lise summons an apotheosis. This causes Evan's engram to destroy itself from the inside. His monster form gets covered in flames, and he falls to the ground. Evan is so amazed by how powerful Lise is that he calls her the strongest sorcerer alive. Lise politely refuses this title. She says the Ice Blade Sorcerer is actually the strongest of all sorcerers. In her opinion, the Ice Blade Sorcerer is strong enough to rule the entire world if they wanted to. Ray finally defeats all the monsters on his side of the battle. He breathes a sigh of relief, thinking everything is over now. All of Ray's friends start talking about how far they've come as a group. They say they only managed to beat those monsters because Ray was there leading them. A dark presence suddenly appears out of nowhere and interrupts their celebration. Several dark mages show up and immediately start attacking them with magic. Powerful sorcerers arrive just in time to save teenagers. The experienced sorcerers tell the students to step back and watch how it's done. It turns out these sorcerers had already destroyed a bunch of enemy mages earlier. They came here to finish off the last group. The first sorcerer to attack is Carla. She jumps into battle holding two sickle-shaped knives. She slashes through the mages with super fast movements she calls lightning slashes. The next sorcerer is Abby. Her sword stretches out and transforms into chains made of tiny arrows. She converts burning flames into multiple fire arrows using these chains. Carol fights in her usual style by turning the battlefield into something that looks like a playhouse. She lures the monsters into a massive explosion of colorful energy. The final display comes from Lydia, whose attack is particularly violent. She summons countless icicle blades and combines them all into one enormous blade. She uses this giant blade to strike the monsters down into the ground. While all this happens, Ray is still fighting the glutton. The glutton decides to go all out and transforms its body to its maximum ultimate size. The monster punches Ray with one giant fist. The hit sends Ray flying through the air, and his body crashes hard onto the bare ground. Maria sees this happen and yells at Rebecca. Maria blames Rebecca for the entire situation because Rebecca refused to talk about her problems when she had the chance. The glutton picks Ray up by the neck and lifts him into the air. Ray magically creates another sword. The glutton assumes this sword will be just as easy to break as all the others. Instead of attacking normally, Ray throws the sword at the glutton's foot. Ice spreads from where the sword is pierced and begins covering the foot. The glutton looks surprised. Ray stabs the monster with more swords. Gradually, ice spreads across the glutton's entire body. Right before the ice reaches its head, the glutton finally admits that Ray is awesome. Immediately after saying this, the glutton becomes completely frozen in ice. This whole time, Ray has been holding on despite the fact that blood is coming from his eyes. Ray activates the Chronos lock on the frozen glutton. Then Ray loses consciousness and collapses. Rebecca tries to go help Ray, but Maria stops her. Maria tells Rebecca to leave Ray alone because everything that happened is Rebecca's fault. The two sisters start arguing intensely with each other. Rebecca says she hates Maria for all the trouble Maria has caused her. Then, in just a moment, both sisters suddenly start admitting they love each other. Rebecca's body suddenly begins glowing with light. When Maria touches her sister, Maria's body starts glowing too. Lise returns carrying Evan's unconscious body. She makes Rebecca's body overheat while creating a mystical barrier around her. Lise tells Ray to activate Chronos Lock on Rebecca. Rebecca feels terrible for saying horrible things to her younger sister. Ray comforts Rebecca and tells her that everyone makes mistakes like that. Ray stays calm and kisses Rebecca on the lips. He activates the Chronos Lock. Someone informs Rebecca's father that both his daughters are safe now. Everything worked out thanks to the Ice Blade Sorcerer. Rebecca's father sends someone named Lex to thank Ray on his behalf. Later that evening, Amelia and Rebecca get into a friendly argument with each other. They're debating which one of them has better chances of winning Ray's heart. Rebecca reminds Amelia that she's now connected to Ray for her entire life. Rebecca asks Amelia if she can handle all the attention Ray gets from so many different girls. Rebecca says she's a mature woman, unlike Amelia who acts like a whiny crybaby. They agree to compete fairly and let the best woman win. Clarice and Elisa show up and join them. Both girls are angry seeing Amelia and Rebecca argue over Ray like Clarice and Elisa don't have a chance with him too. In the end, all 4 girls sit together and wait to watch the fireworks display with Ray. The next day comes and Ray visits Howard's grave. Ray confesses that he never believed he deserved a chance at his new school. Ray says that after all the lives he took on the battlefield, he didn't think he could move forward. He explains that his ability to keep going came from his master Lydia. She helped him work through his grief and made him into the strong person he is today. Finally, Ray says that he's now found people who love and accept him. That's all for today, my fellow men of culture. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe AniYolo for more anime recaps.